I was blessed to have had my great-grandmother, Evelyn Prodger, in my life for 22 years. We called her Bima, and she died just 3 months before turning 100. And even though it had been a long goal of hers to make it on the Today Show and have Al Roker wish her happy birthday, I'm pretty sure that if any of us could do it again, we would make very different decisions about the last 2.5 years. She started to have little memory slips when she was around 93. But it didn't really impact her life much. Asking the same question twice, but most of the time, still following our conversations. When she was 97, I noticed a much bigger difference. She was clearly still her happy self, knew generally who we all were, knew that she loved us, but names and specifics were really hard for her. My mother made a decision that would be the last time that my brother and I saw her, because she didn't want us to remember Bima at her worst. When she was 98, she got pneumonia and sepsis. They found her in her room with a fever approaching 106 and immediately called my grandmother. They had never talked about what to do, so my grandmother instructed them to hospitalize her and treat the sepsis. Honestly, no one thought that a 98-year-old would bounce back, but the next day, the fever was gone, and Bima's body was essentially healthy. And I'm not sure Bima ever forgave my grandmother for saving her. I don't have memories of this, only stories from my grandmother and my mom, but they told me that she changed that day. No longer a radiant presence that lit up the room, she was just angry all the time. And she was mean. And worst of all, her mind was at a point to know just how much it was missing, what she was losing, and she couldn't express what she missed or how sad she was. So all she could experience was fear and rage as her mind continued to slip away and her body just carried on like it was 25. Eventually, she got past the rage when she didn't even really know who she was or who my grandmother was. She was always happy to see my grandmother. I think she sensed that she loved her, but that was really all she had. Finally, in May of 2007, she died peacefully in her sleep. They found her with a smile on her face from ear to ear. No one was more ready to go than Bima. I wish that I knew then what I know now about the importance of having these conversations about our wishes before it's too late. Because we could have saved her 1.5 years of pain and suffering if we had. I think it might not have occurred to them to talk about the horrible possibility of languishing, because my great-grandfather had died instantaneously. There were no choices to make. But most of us will be confronted with difficult decisions, whether for ourselves or for somebody that we love. And from experience, I can tell you those decisions are so much easier when you have the difficult conversations first. When I was a chaplain, one of the most important things that I did with patients was help them fill out an advance directive. How many people here know what an advance directive is? Most. Just in case you don't know what an advance directive is, it's a legal document that has information about your medical wishes if you are unable to make your own decisions. Information like, would you want to be kept alive on life-sustaining machines if you have irreversible brain damage? Do you have a particular doctor you want to look after your care? Do you want to be resuscitated in case of cardiac arrest? And perhaps most importantly, who do you want to make your medical decisions if you are incapacitated? There are a lot of different types of advance directives, ranging from very simple to very detailed and creative. One of the best ones is called 5 Wishes, and it's really tailored to you. Out of curiosity, how many people actually have an advance directive? Wow! That is so wonderful to see. And how many people have been meaning to, but just haven't quite gotten around to it? That's fair. For the first 3 months of my chaplaincy, that was my approach. I would go through advance directives with patients, extol their virtues, but I did not have one myself. And if I'm being honest, the reason was because I wasn't quite ready to do the self-examination about what I would want and who I would want to carry that out. I was 31, and I figured, what's the harm? Do I really need an advance directive? Then I met Anna. Anna was 33 and had type 1 diabetes and chronic nerve pain. I met with her frequently. She talked about her dreams. I helped her make plans about how she could return to some of the things that brought her joy. She talked about her boyfriend of 10 years and how much she loved him, how supportive he was. I remember feeling hopeful for her. A month later, she came back to the hospital, probably 40 pounds thinner, and now almost completely blind. We talked about her grief, but she wasn't ready to look at worst-case scenarios. And being new to chaplaincy, I didn't ask the question that I really should have. What if this doesn't get better? What would you want? I deeply regret my own cowardice. Because the next time she came to our hospital, she was non-responsive. Every test came with the same horrifying words: responsive to painful stimuli only. Pain was literally the only thing her brain could process. And despite being near brain dead, she would still scream in agony, non-stop. Her boyfriend couldn't bring himself to remove the feeding tube, even when she developed sepsis on top of everything else. And he started drinking from the pain of not knowing what was right. She had no plan in place and no one willing to make a decision about treatment. We finally found her mother and sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in 15 years. And after 40 days of constant pain, they stopped dialysis and removed the feeding tube. And the next day, she was finally at peace. As soon as the family left, I filled out my advance directive. Because it doesn't matter if you're 85 or 25, it can happen to anyone. And if it happens to me, I want someone who will honor my wishes to make the horrible decision to remove mechanical support if damage is irreversible. And I know it would not be fair to ask my mother or father to make that call about their child. But it's a call I trust Mick to make. And that's why we say that the person you pick is the most important decision in advance directives. Because it isn't about who you love the most. It's about who you know will honor your wishes. But more than anything, advanced planning is a conversation. It's a conversation that we have with each other, where we think through and talk through what a quality life looks like for each of us. And there's a good chance that every single one of us in this room has a slightly different idea about what that means. But this is how we get to live our best life and eventually die our best death. We plan for it now. I have explicit instructions for Mick if I'm nearing the end. Yes, I do want to be surrounded by my loved ones. And he's going to have a playlist of musical theater songs playing so that I can go out singing, even if the singing is just in my head. And at my funeral, he is to play the song Don't Stop Believing by Journey, because I want to put one last smile on people's face. And if I ever find myself trapped in my own mind like my great-grandmother was, Mick will know not to go through heroic efforts to save my physical body when it's ready to follow. Because my quality of life comes from how I connect with others. And if I can't connect, I wouldn't be living my life. In Atul Gawande's Being Mortal, he spends most of the book really helping us to see that planning ahead isn't actually about dying. It's about living your best life until your last breath. And nothing was clearer than when he talked about his father's decision when an MRI revealed a malignant tumor in his spinal cord. He didn't want surgery, and other options would keep the symptoms minimal, and the tumor small enough for a couple of years. And when the tumor finally grew to a point where he might have considered surgery, he declined. He went into hospice, and the focus on comfort made it so that he was able to continue to do the things that he loved and enjoy life. Gawande described the process as beautiful, one in which nobody had regrets. And that is an incredible gift. And it is a gift that we can give to our loved ones, to each other. My grandparents are now going through this, and thankfully they are both cogent enough to be thoughtful about what they want. But they're communicating what they want, and that's all I can ask. And I hope that you will think through this too. And if you want to set up a specific appointment with me to talk about it, I would be honored to have a conversation about this with you. Because I know how hard and scary it is to really wrestle with our mortality. But it's not a wrestle that we win or lose. It's more of a dance. There's one more thing that as you use, I feel a duty to assuage your potential concerns. That like all of our documents, advance directives are living documents. It can be changed at any time. So getting it perfect is not a worry. I believe that advance directives are you to the core, an exercise in our spiritual lives. Because planning now is about claiming your agency and your power. It's asserting your worth and your interdependence. It's using your voice boldly while you have it. It's an act of love for the people in your life so that they aren't left wondering. And it's an act of love for yourself. Because in getting to know how you really want to live, I believe it will actually help you to live that best life. And then, when we are ready to let go, our lives will speak for us. Our love will speak for us. Because we spoke for ourselves when it was necessary. So, my friends, I encourage you to listen to yourselves. Find out what your best life looks like. Because that is a life and death of integrity. Blessed be.